The gigantic government sucks. Pursuit of happiness radio is deluxe. Liberty and freedom will make you smile. The pursuit of happiness on your radio dial. Just as cheeseburgers and liberty fries, it's pursuit of happiness time.
Yeah, hi. Greetings, kids. A new study claims there are billions more people on Earth than we previously thought. Another reason for Elon Musk to start using prophylactics. Thanks for turning on the radio. I'm Kenny Webster. You're you. And joining us at the end of the broadcast will be stand-up comedian Tim Mathis with the latest from Hollywood. So hang around for that. That'll be good. We're live streaming on social media today while we broadcast on the radio. So if you're enjoying the show in audio format and I reference a visual aid and it's confusing to you, that's probably why. I'll try not to do that, but I just like to put that out there before we start in case anyone gets confused. So, okay, sometimes I'll be talking about things that you'll be listening to on the air. Everybody get that? You get it. Okay. U.S. authorities, the New York Post today, I love the New York Post. The New York Post is a funny way of writing stories. They're just the best. Youths and brutes and beauties, and they always have funny words to use to describe people involved in news stories. So anyway, the New York Post reports today that U.S. authorities arrested an illegal brute and top MS-13 boss for the East Coast, one of the top 3 in the entire country. Pretty big deal. They found him in Virginia, and this is among the 340 criminals in the past month that have been arrested. And you know Pam Bondi is already working hard, telling Fox News viewers about what's going on, not really doing anything so much as just appearing on TV, but she's pretty, so that's great. Very few details have yet been explained in the operation, but it was a collaborative effort. It was multiple agencies, all the different alphabet agencies involved here, FBI, ICE, ATF, and NKOTB, and all the other good ones. So really exciting news. And then on top of that, we have just received this report. I'm, like a lot of you, I'm not a big fan of judges stepping in the way, activist judges stepping in the way, especially like regional appellate judges trying to tell Donald Trump what he can and can't do when it comes to national security. That's a bit infuriating, but we had a big win here today. In fact, I have a video of this to share with you guys. The Trump administration announced today that federal authorities had arrested, I'm sorry, we just did this story. I thought we had an update on the judge. Maybe I'm mistaken here. Big victory. Well, anyway, it's a huge victory. Here is Caroline Leavitt with some of the details about what we just learned. Let me throw that video up on the... I enjoy looking at her. I don't know why we need 2 Caroline Levitts. We already have Caroline Leavitt. What do we need Pam Bondi for, right?
Cherry blossoms are here. It's beautiful. You guys saw the big news this morning about an MS-13 ringleader who was arrested and will now be removed from that community in Virginia. This is a big win for the American public, and the president is very proud of Attorney General Bondi and the FBI Director Kash Patel, and they worked alongside Governor Youngkin in Virginia. So we applaud the effort of state and local law enforcement. You
guys know when you watch me or listen to my radio show, I'm not going to cheerlead for the Republicans all the time. I mean, I'll tell you when they're doing something. What did Pam Bondi do? Come on, what did she do? Tell me what she did. You know, Kash Patel, I believe that. I believe Tom Homan played a role here. Absolutely. But what point are we going to pretend Pam Bondi's you remember that scene in Office Space? What would you say you do here? I don't know. If Pam Bondi was in charge of leading an effort to go out and arrest this MS-13 gang member, then what did Kash Patel do? What did Tom Homan do? Right? And then who's the other one? Chrissy Nome. You guys watch Chrissy Nome in that footage of her visiting the El Salvador prison yesterday? You know what it reminded me of? It's that scene from Silence of the Lambs. No, not the one where he's naked in front of the camera listening to new wave music. No, when Jodie Foster's character is walking through the prison and all the guys are behind the bars telling her they could smell her feminine odor or whatever. You got to wonder, Chrissy Nome. I mean, look, I'm just saying she's a beautiful woman, and there's a lot of creepy guys in that prison. Has everybody's seen the footage at this point, right? I'm sure if you've never seen it before, and I assume that you have, it almost looks like a holding cell. That's what's so confusing about this. Let me put one of these up on the screen for people to look at it. The prisons in El Salvador, I love that Bukele gets along with Donald Trump, the leader of El Salvador. We have this, oh, good, there's an ad for Dell on the screen. Thank you so much. I love what Reuters. Anyway, just explaining out loud what we're looking at here. They cram all these guys inside of a prison cell. And I would have assumed this was a holding cell. It looks like a scene out of a movie where they're taking people from the drunk tank to go see the night court judge or something like that. That's not what's happening here. These guys live like this their whole life. They spend their whole life in this room, crammed together, no pillow, no mattress. And American liberal activists want you to feel sorry for them. I don't understand why. Their faces are covered in MS-13 gang tattoos. If you get a Trende Aragua tattoo on your forehead, you're a bad guy, right? It's like, what about the due process? What about the MS-13? He had tattooed across his forehead. That's a choice. That's a decision that you make. And when you make that decision, you are making the decision to be treated like a criminal, which is exactly what happened there. I couldn't imagine beautiful Caroline Levitt with the MS-13 tattoo on her forehead. But all that being said, we know we needed this. We understand how dangerous it is in this country right now. After 4 years of Joe Biden and millions of illegal immigrants in the country, not surprisingly, a shockingly large portion of those people are criminal illegal immigrants. And one of the things that bothers me so much about this Judge Boasberg guy, who, by the way, was just assigned to the Signalgate case. I'm going to talk about Signalgate in a minute. We'll get to that. I know you all have thoughts about it, and I'm sure you know I do as well. But this is a guy that ignores statutory laws. The federal judge involved in that case is a regional appellate court judge, is basically issuing a ruling that appears to contradict or reinterpret immigration laws passed by Congress, laws that have existed for a long time, in some cases hundreds of years. And the judges have increasingly used nationwide injunctions to block immigration enforcement. That's exactly what happened here. Why have the laws? Why have Congress? Why would a local judge step in the way and decide that he was going to get involved in a case that affects national security? Because not shockingly, his daughter is in fact involved in one of these NGOs, these non-government organizations that collects a lot of money going out and helping out criminal illegal aliens. Do you remember at the beginning of the Biden administration, we learned that there was an NGO. This is when a lot of people learned about NGOs for the first time and the role that they play in skating around the federal laws, particularly involving immigration, but other things as well. One of these NGOs was down at the border handing out Capri Suns and Lunchables to the illegals while they walk over the border, and then giving them a copy of Kamala Harris's book. Who was buying Kamala Harris's book? Apparently NGOs funded by USAID or the federal government, not always USAID, and which means you were paying for it. It means you were paying people to hand out Kamala's book at the border. And if that doesn't piss you off, I don't know what else to say. But this guy trying to block deportation orders and exhausting legal appeals costs us millions of dollars. It's one more reason why, thank God, Donald Trump won the election. If it's this bad right now, with unelected officials getting involved in immigration issues that endanger your family, imagine what it would have been like right now if Kamala had won.
This is Bernie Sanders, and you are listening to the Pursuit of Happiness Radio. Now give me all of your money, because that's the only thing that's fair.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video and watching me stream live right now, I don't, I don't self-promote a lot. I'm not a social media whore. I'm old school, guys. For those of you that even wonder why I do this, I really enjoy working in radio. I work in old media. I love being on a radio show. I love the audio medium. But once or twice a week, I'll hop on here and I'll live stream the radio show because people always ask, what does it look like in the studio? What do you look like? I think I'm not as ugly as people expect me to be, and that's flattering for a radio. I'm a good-looking radio guy, which is like being the tallest midget. It means nothing, really. It's like being the best athlete in, the intramural sports or something. It doesn't really mean anything. But if you do enjoy this and you want to support what we do, go to ilovewj.com, where we sell tons of awesome merchandise with our good buddy who runs the store for us, Austin Peterson, and there's a link there in the comment section if you want to check that out. If you're curious why the music on the live stream sounds different than the music that we normally play during the real radio show, it's because this is, what do they call it, trademark and royalty free. So we get away with playing this electronic music. I have a little confession to make. I produce some of this stuff in my studio with my friends when I'm bored. So it's not copywritten. It's not trademarked. That's why we legally get away with playing it. Anyway, that's more information that you needed. But I needed to kill a minute or two while I refresh the computer and prepare the next segment. So, joke's on you. It was like a magic trick, sleight of hands. I was doing something else while I made you think I was saying something important, and I wasn't. Yeah, we're back. Back from what, you're probably wondering. A lot of you were watching me on social media. I never went anywhere. But if you're listening on the radio, we are back, so thank you so much. Candy sales hit a record $54 billion last year. Now you know why your dentist wears a Rolex. That's the reason why he's got it. And did you guys see this thing about DoorDash? How bad is it right now? I know we talked about this on the show before, but it's worth bringing up again. Interest rates are so absurdly high over the last few years. Credit card debt is out of control. This isn't an ad for anything. In fact, we're told that interest rates are starting to come down. There's some mortgage companies that are able to work around the Federal Reserve, and I could explain it to you, but I don't quite understand it myself, and frankly, it's kind of boring. But I do know the economy is so bad right now. How bad is it? Thank you. The economy is so bad right now that apparently people are financing their DoorDash orders. People are ordering food on the internet and then paying it off in installments, which is just... God, it's so bleak, right? It's talk about having a black pill moment. How could fortunately, inflation is coming down. No one wants to talk about that. Do you remember during the pandemic, all they could talk about at the beginning of the pandemic was how there weren't enough ventilators. There weren't enough ventilators. Donald Trump wasn't ready for the pandemic. There's not enough ventilators. And then in the period of about 2 weeks, he worked with tech companies, auto companies, Tesla, Ford, and he was able to manufacture enough ventilators that within less than a month, there was no longer a ventilator shortage around the country. And rather than reporting on that, they just move on to the next crisis, right? So that's what they're doing now. We've lowered the cost of eggs. Fuel has come down. The tariffs aren't really affecting things as much as they claim that they would. And granted, these tariff wars Trump's having with foreign countries, they don't last very long. It's a hold your breath contest. Who can hold your breath the longest? Spoiler alert, it's almost always the United States of America, thank God. But anyway, so now they are clinging on as desperately as they can to Signalgate. They don't have anything else. And if you're wondering, what Signalgate is, it's a smartphone app. I have it on my phone, and I'll show it to you right now because I think it's worth. I've used it once. I have a friend that was selling some guns, and he said, just for personal security purposes, and I'll cover his name here. He said, just message me on the Signal app, and I'll show you what guns I have for sale. We weren't doing anything illegal, obviously. That's why I'm talking about it openly on the radio right now. But the point he was trying to make was, his privacy, didn't want people. So this is a peer-to-peer encrypted app, and I'm going to cover out. That's what it looks like. It looks like nothing on my phone. It's a blank screen. But the reason I show you that is because that's what it looks like when you don't have a lot of people in your Signal Rolodex, so to speak. I have one name here, one buddy of mine, because I've used the app one time. You don't have names in there of people that you've never talked to. At least in my brief and short experience with the app, it never added anybody. I don't get friend requests from people on Signal. Does it even work like that? Forgive my ignorance here, but I don't think it does. So who's to blame for the Signalgate controversy? J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth were having a conversation about what to do about the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And I love J.D. Vance's take on this whole thing. We've talked about this before on the radio, but I think it bears repeating. Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio kind of, I don't really have a lot of opinions about Pete yet. We'll see how he does. Marco Rubio is from the old school neocon Republican Party. And no offense, but there are many of those guys in the state of Florida. There's many of them in Texas as well. But Marco Rubio in this conversation seemed like he was pretty much cool to go to war with Yemen, which is a weird position to take when you're the Secretary of State. You're the top diplomatic relations. It's your job to negotiate away wars. That's what Rubio's supposed to do. And for some reason, Pete Hegseth and Rubio didn't seem to have a problem with bombing the Houthi rebels. J.D. Vance had a fantastic point. He said, 2% of our trade comes from the Suez Canal. 2%. That's where the part of the country, the world that's been affected by the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And 40% of the trade in Europe comes through Suez Canal. Europe can afford to take care of this. This is the fact that we're doing this to help Europe, it's one of millions of examples of welfare that we as American taxpayers, not citizens, mind you, but plants in a tax farm, are expected to provide to the rest of the world. Did you see the thing about Australia this week? I'm going off topic here, but this is really important. In Australia, the leader of Australia, what do they have down there? A prime minister, had to hold an emergency meeting to talk about all the funding they were going to lose because of budget cuts in the United States of America. Why is it that you and I, as American taxpayers, are paying so much money into the Australian college system with our tax dollars, a developed country, mind you, not a third world crap hole, but a real country? We were paying so much money into their system down there that they had to have an emergency meeting to figure out what to do when that money was pulled out from underneath them. Frankly, I think that's the real problem. We shouldn't be funding the whole world. The whole world can fund itself for once. America first, for crying out loud. But anyway, who's to blame? Getting back to the Signalgate thing, who is to blame for all of this? Mike Walls has repeatedly said he's going to take the blame, but he doesn't understand how this happened. He doesn't know, he says. Here he is with Laura Ingraham earlier this week. For those of you that haven't seen this short clip, let's play it real quick.
And look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked
okay. Why is he in your contacts, though? I'm good buddies with a restaurant clerk, restaurateur, entrepreneur, restaurant owner in the Houston, Texas area named Morgan Weber. So a lot of you probably heard of him if you're from Southeast Texas. He's kind of a famous restaurant guy. He owns a cool booze company called the Marfa Spirit Company. My ex-wife's name was Morgan Webster. Now, fortunately, I never once... You see where that's going. Like, it could have been bad, right? Texting. More than once I've texted him when I was trying to text her. Now, it was never like a rooster pic or anything. God, it could have been worse. But all that being said, I go to his restaurants. He's my buddy. We've drank and partied together before. I don't understand why Mike Waltz had Jeffrey Goldberg's number in his Signal. That means you needed to have a peer-to-peer encrypted conversation with the guy who famously published a fake news story detailing how supposedly Donald Trump once called dead military veterans losers. Why was that guy in your contact list? I don't trust Mike Waltz, is what I'm saying. I think he's lying to us. Mike Waltz, by the way, a good friend of Dan Crenshaw and all the other neocons. If you don't believe me, look it up. They've authored bills together before. Mike Waltz claims he did not know this guy. Well, there is evidence suggesting he met Goldberg before. In 2021 at an event at the French embassy where they were photographed together. Oh, you were photographed with this guy. Whoops. Uh-oh. Thought you didn't know him. That's interesting. If Waltz had Goldberg's contact information from such an encounter, his claim of not knowing him or how he was added could be an attempt to downplay this connection. Signal requires a user's phone number or a username or a QR code to add someone. So for Waltz to have added Goldberg, that would imply he had Goldberg's cell phone number. Why'd you have this guy's cell phone number? I get it. You both work in Washington, D.C., but there's a lot of people in Washington. I live in Houston, Texas, where I'm very involved in local politics and very involved with other local media people. Some of them appear on this radio show regularly. Journalists, talk show hosts, activists. Guess whose cell phone numbers I don't have? opposition media and political people. I don't have their phone numbers. I don't know how to call them. I don't know how to get a hold of them. Why would he have had this guy's number? Do you get what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. Reports indicate, here's an interesting point. Reports indicate Waltz was the group administrator who created the Houthi PC small group chat and added participants. That's what they called it. If he personally initiated the group, it's plausible he intentionally or mistakenly added Goldberg. That's what he claims, but I'm not buying it. I don't believe this. I think either Waltz had a staff member that added him or he did it himself. I think that this was sabotage. Am I wrong? Explain it. Give me a good excuse for why it happened. So far, they have none. All they've told us is, I don't know how it happened. I know how it happened. You're in communication with the enemy, and you got caught. We could pretend like this does, because it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of the bigger issue isn't that this happened. The liberal media has nothing else to talk about. They keep repeating Signalgate, because there's nothing else going on. The economy is improving as quickly as we want, maybe not, but clearly moving. The trajectory of the statistical data is clearly moving in the right direction for things like inflation. Crime seems to be coming down. You want to talk about the border? That's fantastic. We're negotiating away wars. We know things are getting better. Signalgate is all they have. They're desperately clinging to it, like a middle-aged woman desperately clinging on to whatever guy will take a date with her right after her divorce because she knows her looks are fading away. Don't read too deeply into that analogy.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hey, look, you, just shut your pie hole and keep working.
Back to the Pursuit of Happiness Radio.
This is Pursuit of Happiness Radio, celebrating liberty and freedom.
Did you guys know we have a comedy show coming up in a little bit? We're going to be the weekend of 420. I keep saying the weekend. It's Easter weekend. I could explain it as Easter weekend, or if I tell you it's on Good Friday, it kind of sounds bad, actually, because I'm a Catholic and I don't, this isn't blasphemy, but I'm going to be in New Orleans and Hattiesburg on Friday, April 18th and Saturday, April 19th, respectively. I am the host, MC, and opener for two guys that are better at stand-up comedy than I am. I'm a talk radio show host. Chad Prather, if you know my buddy Chad, hilarious guy, sings songs, tells jokes, very talented. If Chad was not a conservative, if he was not a so-called right-wing ideologue, he would be in mainstream comedy. He'd be on Comedy Central every night. He's that good. And then the other comedian that put it all together is named Jesse Payton, who you may be familiar with from many of my Wheelchairs for Warriors, Operation Comedy Therapy shows. I'm going to drop a link to that in the chat right now. If you guys want tickets, here is a link to that in the comments. I would love for you guys to go to this. If you're going to be in New Orleans, Friday, April 18th, or Hattiesburg, Saturday, April 19th. That's going to be a lot of fun. And it's called The Right Side of Comedy. Jesse and Chad have been doing these shows together, and they've invited me before, but because I host a morning radio show, I can't go out on school nights to hang out in Birmingham, Alabama, or Memphis, Tennessee, or these are all places where we're on the radio at. But sadly, I get up. Sadly, I love what I do. It's not sad, but I get up early in the morning to go to the radio show, so I can't come out and do a comedy show on a weeknight if it's in another city. But this weekend they're doing shows, and I'm going to be available all weekend. So I'm going to be touring around South Louisiana and South Mississippi with them. If you come and hang out with us that weekend, I promise it's going to be a lot of fun. This is a great group of guys. The people that Jesse brings out to his comedy show are fun. The people that Chad brings, it's a diverse age group wise. It's if you're younger or older, you won't be the only one there. But one thing that won't be diverse is political opinions. This is generally a comedy show for conservatives and libertarians and Republicans and right-leaning people. That's why it's called The Right Side of Comedy. Not that liberals aren't welcome. Liberals can come out too if they want, but we will make fun of you. I'm just saying, so expect that. But anyway, there's a link to that in the comment section if you guys want to go. Anyway, the show continues right now, so hang on. Very exciting, you guys. Jeff Bezos is sending out wedding invitations. I did not get one. Did you guys get a Jeff Bezos wedding invitation? I did not get one in the mail, sadly, and I would love to go. I would love to hang out with some of those people. Oprah's going to be there. Kim Kardashian is going to be there. It's a little bit like, that part of the movie, in comic book movies where all the villains team up. I think it's going to look an awful lot like that. And even though this isn't what I wanted to talk about, I just noticed that was in the news today. Can we get a picture of Bezos and his fiance on the screen real quick for anybody. Look at these two. Look at that. That is true love right there. Look at this woman, the Latina bombshell over here on the right. And then on the left, there's scrawny, awkward, pale-faced, bald Jeff Bezos. I'm so glad these two found each other. This is what true love looks like, everybody. You know full well that these two kids were meant to be together. There's nothing bringing them together except the fact that their souls are unified as one. And some people think she just loves him for the money and he just loves her for those giant fake tatas, but I'm not buying it, guys. I know true love when I see it. Okay, maybe not, but still, you know, close enough. I digress. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what Bill Gates just did. Bill Gates is a fun guy, isn't he? I have a video. I have a clip of him I want to play. Bill Gates, New York Post today reporting that Bill Gates is predicting that the advancements in artificial intelligence will significantly reduce humanity's role in traditional tasks like things like medicine and education. For a long time, you know, I have family members in healthcare. I have family members in education, teachers and doctors, nurses, principal, that sort of thing. You understand respectively what those two industries entail. Why would you need that is the question that is being asked right now if AI could do it for you. Bill Gates explains it in a very pessimistic way. He makes it sound like this is going to destroy jobs and nobody will be able to work anymore. No, it's not what's going to happen. Trust me on this. It'll be okay. Nobody needs to repair wagon wheels anymore. And we all have a washing machine to wash our clothes, right? Does that mean that now you just have hours in your day every day where you have nothing to do? No, the world got better. New technology and advancements came along. The economy shifted and changed. And new jobs were created to replace the old. It'll be fine, right? I'm broadcasting right now on the oldest radio station in Texas. It's over 100. This is an old radio station. It's very old. And yet somehow I still have a job where I'm talking to people on the internet, right? And the radio still exists too. So education jobs will still exist. Healthcare jobs will still exist. It's fine. But Bill Gates is trying to bum everyone out. I found when I read the article and watched some of the interview that it sounded like he was trying to scare everyone. And Bill Gates has a history of doing that. It would be easier for me to tell you all the things I agree with Bill Gates on than what I disagree with him on. Bill Gates is a horrible person. For those of you that don't know this about me, when I was a teenager, I've always been kind of a nerdy kid. I was never great at sports or anything like that. When I was into skateboarding in high school, electronic music, and computers. I was obsessed with the movie Hackers back in the 90s. And I was into programming, C++ and Visual Basic and getting online. And so for me, a young person in the counterculture of this new cutting-edge digital technology movement in the 90s, we hated Bill Gates. We thought he was Hitler. He was the devil. He was Satan himself, Beelzebub. Not a good guy. And liberals agreed with that, whether you were a libertarian or a liberal. Usually you were either, back in those days, in the underground computer culture, bulletin boards, BBSs, that sort of thing, dial-up modems, connecting to internet relay chat and IRC and that sort of thing. You were either on the far left or you were like a libertarian or an anarchist, which for some of you out there, that kind of explains my political roots. I'm clearly not a liberal, but you know, we hated Bill Gates because he would do this thing in the 90s where somebody had a tech upstart. There was new exciting technology. Someone created, new streaming technology for Linux or whatever it may be. And Bill Gates would use his company to sue you to death and steal your technology. Years later, Mike Judge made a brilliant TV show for HBO called Silicon Valley, if you've never seen it before, where he made fun of some of this and made fun of Bill Gates with a guy that was clearly a parody of the character. And liberals hated Bill Gates right up until the pandemic. And then what happened? The pandemic came along, and Bill Gates started saying all the things that liberals were saying, and then suddenly they loved him. They thought he was great. Do you remember how weirdly, oddly specific the timing was of a Netflix documentary about epidemics and pandemics that came out right when the real pandemic started? COVID, coronavirus is what we called it then. And all of a sudden, right as that was happening, Netflix just suddenly had a documentary available. I'm not suggesting it means anything. I just thought it was weird. A lot of people did. And Bill Gates was one of the key characters doing commentary during the documentary, explaining to you what to do in case of an epidemic, a pandemic. And then suddenly all these people on the left said, yeah, listen to this guy. Put on masks. Lock yourself in your house. You can't gather together in a public place. It's suddenly Bill Gates was giving liberals the talking points to go ahead and the authority that they needed to do everything they ever wanted. Take away free speech, take away the rights to gather in public places. They hate that, you know. They say they like protests, but they really just like riots. And it reminded me of something. Bill Gates, kind of like Fauci, was wrong about everything back during the pandemic, wasn't he? What was he right about? There's this clip I found that's been going viral over the past couple days here. That it's not a new clip. It's Bill Gates back during the pandemic talking about, well, here, I'll just let him explain it to you. Watch this.
It's quite clear in this case that it came across through animals. And almost all our diseases, like HIV, crossed over from chimpanzees in Africa quite some time ago. Ebola came from bats. This also, with one step in between, came from bats. So it's going to keep happening, particularly with climate change, where we're invading a lot of habitats.
Stop the clip. Climate change. There's a lot of interesting things about the clip we all just watched and listened to. Isn't it interesting that white liberals will blame every health problem on what? Everything always stems back to climate change. They love that. But it's also kind of funny, too. White liberals will tell you in one hand that, like, you shouldn't stereotype or be a racist. And then in the other hand, they'll tell you that every health-related problem we have on Earth is because Africans and Chinese people eat dirty food. Like, which is it, white liberals? Which of those two things do you actually believe? You couldn't possibly believe both. But do you understand how silly and ridiculous that clip is, where he tells you it was bat soup that caused the pandemic and not the Wuhan lab leak? I looked it up before I went on the air this afternoon because I wanted to know. He never corrected that. Now we have mountains of evidence suggesting that's not true. I'm so old. How old are you? Thank you, imaginary person in the back of the room. I'm so old, I can remember when you would be suspended from Facebook for suggesting that the pandemic started in the Wuhan lab. What did Jon Stewart call it? The Wuhan coronavirus experimentation lab that was like a mile away from where ground zero was for the pan. And Bill Gates has never once come out and said, you know, I was wrong about that. Sorry, everybody, I was wrong. There's a reason why people on the conservative right, the libertarian right, no longer trust science. It didn't used to be this way. What's science, right? Science. I trust experimentation. I trust challenging lab results. I trust that is a process we should go through. But we've gone to a point here with scientific theory and scientific experimentation where people on the left will tell you that some things are just indisputable. Well, that's a lie. The entire basis for science is that everything is disputable. You're supposed to challenge things. It didn't used to be this way. Two things really changed it for the left. Back in the 2000s, back in the 90s, liberals were very critical of the chemicals in your food. They were very critical of the pharmaceutical industry. Now the only thing they hate is health insurance CEOs. That's the only thing. The rest of it, whatever you guys want to do, feed us all the opioids and inject us with all the weird drugs you want. They will buy it, hook, line, and sinker. They will believe any of it. There's a British sociologist named Noah Carl who reported on how the political right has seemingly lost all confidence in the scientific community. I have a chart of this I could put up on the screen here for you, but I can see I'm also running out of time since we're on the radio. The data he used came from a general social survey, something whose reliability would perhaps seem suspect if the finding didn't also match most of anecdotal personal experiences, right? But more pressing here is, why has almost half the country lost belief, respect, and confidence in something as objectively based as scientific research? And the reason why is this: we've become smarter. I mean, I think it's safe to assume the scientific community didn't become more ethical or moral, nor did they become less moral or ethical. Things like the pandemic, or Obamacare for that matter, opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that sometimes these guys just lie to you. And that's the way it is. I mean, there are too many examples to list right now, but I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. Before I get out of here, I always like to end the show with a little bit of good news. By the way, if you're listening to me on the radio, the show's not over. We have an interview coming up with Tim Mathis here from Hollywood. But for those of you watching me streaming on live right now, I just wanted to end the segment with this. There's a local news station in Philadelphia that did a feature on a Metro driver named Tracy Holmes Williams because she's got a great attitude and people love her. I always love when people work hard at a job that doesn't really seem glamorous or cool, but they do it as well as they can. This woman's philosophy is to spread joy and to try to make everyone feel good because you never know what they're going through. And this is a good point. I have a hard time with this. When I see people being rude in public or acting like jackasses, I'm the guy that can't keep his mouth shut. But you never really know what that person you're arguing with outside the elevator is actually dealing with today. Here's Tracy making the point about how I'm a monster, and she's probably right.
You coming in my house, I want to greet you. I want you to feel good. I want you to have a nice time. Well, we're the frontline workers, so we're going to be the first thing that the passengers see when we come down the street. You never know what type of day that they might be having, so I just try to be the person that can make them smile, and it's just motivation. So I just try to make everybody feel good, and I always throw up little hearts, show, I love you or whatever. They can be standing outside, and I'll just throw up hearts just to make them smile. Even when my coworkers ride past, I don't know what type of day they might be having.
I don't know what type of day they might be having, but I'm going to be nice to them. I think that's a cool attitude to have, Tracy. I admire that very much. Hey, coming up, if you're listening to us live on the radio, Tim Mathis coming up. We're going to go to Hollywood in a little bit. So put on your prophylactics. It's going to get weird. To the rest of you, stick around, because even though I love Tracy, I'm still not going to ride public transit. You know what I mean? Hey, before I get out of here, we have comments to read. I'd like to see what you guys are saying. I always love hearing from you guys. Let's see what everybody's saying. Cynthia has said a lot. I like Cynthia on Facebook. Stacked like chickens. We need this. Yeah, sometimes when people write like short comments in real time about what I'm saying, I don't know what they referred to. And I immediately get the impression that's true of some of Cynthia's comments, but I still love that she left them. So thank you. I love you, Cynthia. You're a beautiful person. Thank the Lord for Trump. I agree. It could be so much worse right now. As imperfect as everything is, the world is never supposed to be perfect. But could you imagine how much shittier everything would be if we didn't have Trump right now? My God. Pray to God for that. Thank you, God. Rubio knows something we don't, says Cynthia. Okay. She's going back to what I was saying earlier about the Houthi rebels. J.D. Vance is very skeptical about fighting this war with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the Pentagon, not so much. Rubio, not so much. I will tell you this. When you're trying to analyze why someone's doing what they're doing, consider their values, consider what they stand to gain or lose from something. Pete Hegseth is in charge of the Pentagon, right? He's a soldier. What are soldiers supposed? They're supposed to fight. Now, granted, he's a soldier, a member of the military who is very skeptical. Someone's going to go in the comments right now and correct me and say he's a Marine or something. I don't actually know what his title was in the military, but he's a, serviceman. We agree on that. He's a serviceman. Pete Hegseth, as a serviceman, even though he's very skeptical of the military-industrial complex, in charge of the Pentagon, he's still probably going to advocate for some kind of military intervention when there's a problem globally. J.D. Vance is an intellectual. J.D. Vance is a deep thinker. He's a right-wing intellectual populist, right? We don't have enough of those people, frankly. We have libertarian intellectuals. We have conservative intellectuals. Right-wing, people that are writing and thinking deeply about the philosophy and ideology of right-wing populism right now, we don't have enough of them. J.D. Vance is one of those people. I don't agree with J.D. Vance on a lot of economic stuff, but that's about where it stops. I think he's a little more of a leftist or a liberal than I am, but to that point, so's the entire Trump administration. I'm a fiscal conservative. I named my dog after Milton Friedman. I wear it on my sleeve. That's what you're dealing with here. But J.D. Vance's point about how we stand to gain nothing from going to war with the Houthi rebels and Europe stands to gain everything is a very good point. Why do we need to fight a war for Europe? Let Europe fight Europe's war. They can afford it. They have money. They have military. They have soldiers. So, Cynthia, I don't know what Rubio knows. You're right. But I will tell you, if he knew something that we didn't know, he didn't explain it in that chat room. Let's see here. Jordan on YouTube says, get a Jeff Bezos wedding invitation. Sounds like the beginning of a joke or something. I need to look up on Urban Dictionary. What is like a Jeff Bezos? It's like a California Blumpkin or a Cleveland Steamer or something. Don't Google those things, by the way. Do not Google Dubai porta potty. There's a big news story today about that. You're not going to like it. Mick says, I still hate Bill Gates. Me too. F Bill Gates. Jordan says, I remember when The Simpsons had Bill Gates on, he bought out Homer's company by literally destroying everything related to Homer's business. I wish this counted as The Simpsons predicting the future. I think it technically does. Debbie says, hey, Kenny. Hey to you too. I love you guys. I got to run. I got to go walk Milton. Milton's been patiently waiting in a crate with some of his chew toys. But thank you so much. If you don't mind retweeting, sharing this video, I'm very bad about that. I think, for those of you that don't know, I'm old school media. I was talking about this earlier. Social media is just a thing I do because it's part of the business. I'd rather just be on the radio all day. I think that's my strong suit. So I don't actively promote myself a lot so I'm not constantly begging for followers or retweets. But if you enjoyed this video, share it. If you're new here, give me a follow. That's how the industry is supposed to work, or don't. I'll be fine either way. I still pay my bills. I love you all. Have a great day. I'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning on 20 radio stations around the South for more of what you bought a radio for. Have a great day.